Welcome back to Gaming Night. I'm your host, G.A.M.E.R here, and today, welcome to our very first review, technically of the year, of our first new rebrand, whatever. We're back, and so are reviews, because that's something I definitely want to bring to the channel, something I want to do a huge focus on, because I do play a lot of games, I finish a lot of games. I mean, it takes up most of my time, apart from school, and yeah, I want to be able to do reviews, give my thoughts on a lot of games, not necessarily like, come to you every single week and be like, yeah, this game's better than this game, blah, blah, blah. I just want to tell you whether I think it's a good game or not, some of the things I really love about it, some of the things I don't like about it, just give my overall thoughts. I will be giving a score, just so at the end of the year, we can kind of do a recap and just see where the year lined up, not necessarily what games were better than what games, because not everything technically has to be a competition. Some things, yeah, it's fun to have a little competition. Competition breeds excellence in a lot of different ways, but you don't always have to be comparing games. Like, Starfield doesn't have to be better than Spider-Man. Both can be fantastic games, and we can point out the pros and cons of both, and that's kind of what I want to do here. I just want to celebrate games, talk about games, give my thoughts, and kind of just have some fun doing reviews. So yeah, I thought because I'm kind of at a point where I'm trying to catch up on a lot of games that I've missed over the summer and early fall, and I'm currently playing a lot of things I'm very close to finishing, so it's really hard to do reviews for those kind of games right now. So I figured there's a lot of games, and 2023 has undoubtedly been one of the best years of gaming. I think by the end of the year, it has a chance of being the best year of gaming. Honestly, I think it is the best year of gaming, like, ever. So many games, and all are high quality, quantity and quality. That's what we got this year, and we missed a lot of games in terms of doing reviews on them. So I figured, let's go ahead and let's do reviews on pretty much everything that I've played throughout the year, leading up to currently. So we're gonna go ahead and start with at least the first one that comes to mind. One of the very, very early games did come out in January, like 30 something, or like late 20th, late January. It's basically what I'm trying to say, and that is the Dead Space remake for 2023. There's a little bit of glare in there, but yeah, the 2023 remake of Dead Space, and yeah, we're gonna go ahead and talk about it. So the way these reviews are gonna work, honestly pretty simple. By the end of it, I'm going to give it a score 0 out of 10. The way I did it was each score has like a different word to describe it. So like 10 out of 10 is masterpiece, right? And whereas 0 out of 10 is failure. Okay, so I'll go ahead and run through the list real quick. It does decrease by 0.5 increments. So we have 10 out of 10, which is masterpiece. 9.5 is phenomenal. 9 out of 10 is fantastic. 8.5 out of 10 is amazing. 8 out of 10 is great. 7.5 out of 10 is good. 7 out of 10 is solid. 6.5, decent. 6 out of 10, okay. 5.5 out of 10, mediocre. 5 out of 10, weak. 4.5 out of 10, disappointing. 4 out of 10, bad. 3.5 out of 10, flop. 3 out of 10, terrible. 2.5 out of 10, horrible. 2 out of 10, awful. 1.5 out of 10, unacceptable. 1 out of 10, garbage. And 0.5 out of 10, disaster. And 0 out of 10, failure. So there you go. You already know I had a little bit of fun making these, but yeah, so that is what we're gonna be going off of, and then I'm gonna post my reviews and the results of each review on my Instagram, and probably do like stories on the channel as well. Do like little posts on the YouTube channel. So we'll kind of see, but the results post will have the score, a little bit of a description of my overall thoughts, and then I'm going to list some good factors and some bad factors. Now, I'll be honest, some games are going to have like very little bad factors, some games are going to have little good factors, or some will just have a really unbalanced, but that's just how the game is. Like, I'll tell you right now, spoiler alert, Dead Space, I really struggled to come up with some bad factors. So yeah, that's what we're going to do, and yeah, I'm going to explain the game a lot as well throughout some of the reviews. Just so it's not just my opinion, you're also getting some insight on the game, because that's also a goal for these reviews is, if you want to play a game, if you're going to enjoy a game, you should be able to tell just by this review. So let's go ahead and get started. This review is going to be a little bit longer just because I had to do a little bit of an explanation for all these different reviews, all these videos. But now we're ready to talk about the 2023 remake of Dead Space. Now, Dead Space originally came out, I think, in like 2008, around then. I'm going to tell you right now, Dead Space, Resident Evil 4, and Silent Hill 2 are, this isn't just me saying that. I'm pretty, like, this is the general, mass public opinion. Those are the holy trinity of survival horror games. They are the top three. They are the big three. They are the top three survival horror games of all time. So for a remake for one of the greatest survival horror games of all time, a lot of pressure's on. Because number one, you don't want to mess it up. Number two, you have to make it worthy of a remake. And number three, you have to try and basically sell it. if that makes sense. Like, you need to be able to give it something that's just like, okay, so it's the same game, but here's why I should still play this remake. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of the whole idea process that goes on behind remakes. And when you take one of the greatest games of all time, Dead Space, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of concerns, worries that people are going to have leading up to the game's release. And this game is published by EA and is developed by EA Motive. It did release January 27th, 2023. There you go. I had it in my notes right there. So that was the exact date. I'm going to just say it. I know. Now, here's the thing about me. Nostalgia is not that big of a factor when it comes to my opinion on things. I like nostalgia. Like, when I go back and play like old games like Pokemon Stadium on the N64, oh man, so much nostalgia is great. But I'm not going to say that game is better than a lot of current games just because of nostalgia, if that makes sense, right? Like, don't get me wrong. Some of the, older, just any game, some of the older games I think are great, don't get me wrong, and there's a lot of nostalgia to them, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, nothing can beat the original because it's so nostalgic. I'm not going to sit here and say that, because nostalgia doesn't affect my opinion when it comes to that sort of thing. And so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think somehow EA and Motive pulled off the impossible, and I think this remake is actually better than the original. I really do think so, and I'll tell you why. I think because this, to me, outside of FF7 Remake, that's a whole different genre in my opinion. That's not even a remake. That is a redo. But yeah, we're getting out of the talking point. Dead Space Remake is a remake done right. It is the absolute definition of a remake done right. Like I just said, the original is one of the best of all time, and that's my biased opinion too. It might be my favorite survival horror game of all time, I mean, it's a masterpiece, and somehow, some way, the remake does it better. I don't. Props, honestly. Now, my biggest takeaway, and the biggest reason I say this, is because the creative decisions and design, or remake decisions that they did for this game, is actually brilliant. It's actually so creative what they did. My biggest example, which was what I've told so many people why I love this remake and why it was such a shock and such a great experience playing through it, is because with something like a survival horror game, you expect certain things like jump scares, explosions, you're gonna turn a corner and this is gonna happen. Oh my gosh, there's these certain things. And when you take a game that is so beloved and has been played so many times and talked about so many times throughout the years, and when you take a game with those kind of effects, like a jump scare, this is certain things gonna happen, people already know. There were moments in this game where I was like, okay, here it comes. The explosion that happened in the original is about to come out. You get to that point, and it doesn't happen. Instead, the lights turn off. And you're like, what? And guess what? The whole horror factor, scared factor, stress factor comes back when it really shouldn't, because you should have known what to expect because you played the original. But the remake changes the game just enough to where it has the same result, where you end up in the same place afterwards, but the experience of going through it and doing that level is different. Basically, the example was I walked up somewhere, and in the original there was an explosion. Well, instead of that explosion happening, I walked up and the lights turned off, and then the explosion happened. So it was that slight change, that slight creative decision that made the difference, because it was just a whole different experience. It gave me the emotion of fear and stress because I wasn't sure what was going on. Ended up getting to the same result, so it stayed faithful, but still was new and refreshing. That's kind of my biggest takeaway. Hopefully I explained that right. But it was really just such a shock. It happened multiple times where I was expecting something because of the original, and it just didn't happen. But I still ended up doing the same exact thing I did in the original. It just, the way things played out happened differently. And that's what I love about it so much, is this remake honestly doesn't feel like I was necessarily playing the original. It just felt like the original came out today. Like, it's really weird. I know what I just said makes absolutely no sense, but yeah, it's just so great because you got the visual upgrades, of course, added in much better textures, much better graphics, the lighting, the shadowing, all of that stuff just looks absolutely beautiful. I mean, on a next generation game. I did play this on PS5, by the way. It's a next generation game that looks and sounds brilliantly because the audio is also improved. Improved controls, I would like to add. I actually thought the controls were very fluid, very easy to maneuver. And yeah, it was just a really overall fun game to play. And that's something I'd like to say is, even if this game wasn't a remake, it's still an awesome game. Like, don't get me wrong, it is still an awesome game. The whole premise, it's a sci-fi horror game. You go to a ship, you get stuck on the ship with aliens, monsters, and you know, you have to try and escape. You lose some friends along the way. You find out cool secrets along the way. It's just an overall simple premise that is just executed so well. The combat and shooting are top notch. I mean, some of the best shooting and combat in any survival horror game, in my opinion, just because it's so satisfying. There's so many cool upgrades, and the gear system is super efficient all the way through. You're always unlocking new things. A lot of the puzzles and like kind of fun little segments where you have to choose to switch your power to one section, whereas the lights then turn off but the doors open. You have to try and kind of figure that out, make sacrifices along the way. It brings it just to such a great single player survival horror experience that you really can't find anywhere else, if I'm being honest. There's games that have tried the sci-fi survival horror game, stuck on a ship with aliens. It's just not the same. Dead Space is just the king. Dead Space is the king of that type of game. And it's for all the reason we just listed. It's easy controls, it looks beautiful, it sounds great, the combat and shooting are so fun, so satisfying. The gear system and the weapon system, the mission system is very engaging, very efficient, and the story is simple but effective, and you really just love every second of the game you play. I just kept on wanting to keep going, try and beat the game. I've even gotten close to getting the platinum on the game just because I keep on playing it. It's actually a game I want to go back and replay the whole story again. Yeah, it's just so fun because then you also have these great segments and sequences, like missions where, you know, the big, I forget the name of it, but you know, the big like snake eating thing comes out and you're like, he's slamming you against the wall, you're going through the tunnel, he's trying to eat you. It's so great. Space octopus, I forget what they call it, but if you play the game, you know what I'm talking about. This is I hate the fact that I have to say this, but the thing that separates Dead Space from all the other horror games the most is the fact that it's actually scary. It is actually scary. A lot of, you know, survival horror games like Resident Evil 4, in my opinion, is not really scary. It's just you beating up on a whole bunch of zombies and some really weird looking stuff. There really isn't any fear factor to that game. There's definitely some unsettling factors to Resident Evil 4, but Dead Space is just scary on a different level. Like, walking through all the corridors and everything with the lights just flickering, loud monster noises, monsters ripping through the metal walls, seeing your friends getting killed, glass shattering, the lights turning off, explosions happening left and right. It's just different. It's just different, and it's so good. I don't really have many complaints. I really can't think of any complaints. Actually, but this is my big complaint, and it's not really even that big because it kind of gets a pass for this in some ways because of the type of game it is. But I wish there was more memorable music. Now, my excuse for that is it's a horror game. Horror games aren't known for having great music, but when I want, because I have like a playlist that I put a bunch of video game music on, and I have a 2023 video game music playlist. I want to add something Dead Space to it. I just can't because there's like no music to add. You can add the main menu theme, but it's literally just like one scary note played, and then it repeats and it repeats. It's like almost unlistenable. Like, it'd be really hard to put that on a playlist and jam out to it in the car. It's just not how it's gonna go. I also wish in the remake they added a bit more content. But the execution of the remake, in my opinion, makes up for it. Like, they kept in, the low gravity soccer, football, whatever you want to call it, basketball. I don't know. They kept in that. What I'm saying is I wish they added in like a bonus quest or two, bonus mission or two, just so there's some new stuff. But overall, they changed all the current missions just a little bit. They added in new collectibles and new like achievements and all that. They kept in some of the awesome modes like the low gravity basketball, football, soccer, whatever. And so the execution of the remake makes up for it. They didn't necessarily have to add in a bonus quest. I just kind of wish that they did. I don't think it makes the game any worse because it is still a pretty lengthy game with a lot of side content to do. So I don't think it was absolutely necessary for them to do that. Plus, it's not that old of a game. I mean, it's 2008, so we're looking at about, oh god, the math, we're looking like 15 years, right? Is that right? Like 15 years, so it's not like too old. But yeah, overall, this is still, and I say that, still, even if this remake didn't happen, it is still one of the best horror games of all time. And the remake is just as good, if not better. I'm going to score this, for our first ever review of the year, a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let you know right now, at the time of recording this, October 10th, 2023, I'm currently playing through Forza Motorsport and Assassin's Creed Mirage. Dead Space Remake is my game of the year right now. But that's what I gotta say. Absolutely loved it. If you love shooter games, if you love horror games, if you love great games, honestly, if you just love great games, please play this game because it's just phenomenal. Everything about it. The execution is flawless. Dead Space is and will be always one of the greatest, if not the best survival horror game of all time. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, definitely leave a like, leave a comment in the section down below provided, and please subscribe. I will see you guys next time for our next review. I'm going to try to be doing two, maybe even 3 reviews a week just to try and catch up to where we currently are, because October's got a lot of games coming out, so I'm going to be trying to beat a lot of those games and do reviews as soon as possible. But yeah, until then, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. G.A.M.E.R out. Peace.